Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Monday, the 30th of August. I'm Derek Clark. I'm delighted to say I'm joined this morning by Jonny McFarlane. Jonny, how are we doing this morning?
Very good. I would like to say bright and breezy, but I'm not really a morning person, so I'm still sort of clawing the cobwebs out of my eyes and the sleep out of my... It was a bit of a late one last night. After the game, I was sort of trying to catch up with everything and the reaction on Twitter. Some of the reaction on TikTok to your good self and your video after the game was cracking me up. People slaughtering your glasses, people slaughtering your diction. Some people backing you, Derek. It certainly gave me lots of comedy gold to keep me going.
Yeah, who knew I'm a TikTok sensation? But more on that later. We done a video immediately after the game yesterday, Jonny, just looking at the events of Rangers' 1-0 victory over Celtic. Of course, Phil Hollander getting the goal in the second half. You've had time to sleep on it and look back. What did you make of it overall? It's really, we mentioned yesterday how it sort of changes the narrative of the season start from Rangers.
No, that's for sure, 100%. Rangers, the narrative up till now has been not quite at it, not looking like the same team, maybe not looking quite as fit, maybe not looking quite as... Well, the word that Gary McAllister uses, having a snap about their play. That's all been blown away now. Yes, up till now, disappointing that you got knocked out of the Champions League. There's no doubt about that. That's one that's painful. But domestically, you're going into the international break 3 points ahead of your biggest rivals. Okay, they've lost the game against Dundee United, but it means that there's no problem with that now. That's chalked up to a bad day at the office. So I think Rangers are back on track. They performed very well in what was an extremely close game, Derek. There's no doubt about it. Celtic had their chances. But, Rangers, I thought, gave a very, very clever tactical performance. The first half, there was nothing between the two sides. Rangers looked to cede possession and urge Celtic onto them and hitting the counter-attack. And that was a strategy that worked well. I saw Chris Sutton grasping at straws as usual on Twitter, talking about 35% possession in the game, as if it meant something about how the game went. I mean, that was Rangers' strategy. That was actually what they deliberately tried to do. So, ludicrous to be talking about that, frankly. But unsurprising. And in terms of the way Rangers played, they were very, very well organised. Celtic were predictably quite slick going forward and dangerous and broke well. And they have some good players in Kyogo, despite the fact that he missed a couple of chances, caused Rangers problems. There's no doubt about it. But overall, I think that the strategy worked, and in the second half, for about 30 minutes, Rangers were by far the better team. And throughout the whole game, there was only one period when one team was really on top, and that was that half-an-hour period in the second half, and it was Rangers who were on top. Celtic had a few chances in the last 10 minutes when they moved Kyogo into the middle of the pitch, but it wasn't really a control, it was more chaos. It was pushing men forward, it was switching up the formation, and it was going guts for glory type thing.
Yeah.
So I think all in all, Rangers will be delighted with the win. I think it was a really astute tactical performance by the guys there. And when you take into the fact that Gary McAllister is in charge, Steven Gerrard's not there, 7 first-team players are out. There's been incredible disruption to this pre-season with COVID, international tournaments, injuries, suspensions. I think Rangers will look at this and say, we've come through and united after an incredibly tough period. And you know what? Despite all the ups and downs, despite all the criticisms, they always call it noise when they're talking about it in the press conferences, and probably we're part of that. All the noise, they are in a good place. And it's as simple as that, really. And Celtic have kind of got to go back to the drawing board almost.
Yeah, You're not the only one struggling this morning, Johnny. Joe has got in touch, says we're all struggling this morning. A late one had by many, no doubt. You mentioned that noise. Leon Balogun was named man of the match yesterday. He was speaking to the media afterwards. He was talking about the game itself. He says there was a lot of people running their mouth when something negative happens around our club. It's not even our fault because we all live in this pandemic. Whenever something like this happens, we have people coming after us. But we have shown today what awaits you if you do that. That's a big family. It's the first time I've met the fans in an Old Firm. It's been magnificent the way they've been pushing us. You can only say thank you on behalf of the team. You certainly felt that. I done a piece yesterday, Johnny, about the fans, and you'd have seen it on television as well, how they almost they just pushed that team forward, weren't they? They weren't just a 12th man. They just felt that they were in every player's body almost, and they pushed themselves towards that victory. It was great to see.
Yeah, before we talk about that, did you watch Leon Balogun's press conference? It was absolutely brilliant.
I just watched it this morning. Yeah, I caught it this morning. It was terrific.
Anyone who's not seen it should go onto Rangers Twitter channel and have a look, or their YouTube channel, and have a look at Leon Balogun's 6-minute interview, where he's told that he's been getting called Leon Ballon d'Or, and his reaction is just absolutely priceless. Very, 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 very confident guy. Very funny, and a really terrific piece of content there. A really interesting interview to watch that. So absolutely would say go and watch it. In terms of the fans, Derek, you're the man to talk about it. You know, I'm sitting here watching it on a TV, thinking, wow, this looks like it is absolutely bouncing, and literally bouncing. I mean, I think everyone now will have seen the footage of the fans in the stadium. The entire stadium's doing the bouncy. Yeah, and the camera is bouncing with the fans. So if you're wanting to get an idea of what the atmosphere was like, that's pretty impressive in terms of taking you right in there. I mean, what was that like at that moment when the stadium was absolutely rocking?
Yeah, it was brilliant to see. I mean, that's we all know that supporters haven't been in football grounds for the past 18 months or so. So just to see them in the ground is great. But when they're all come in unison like that and to support the team, it really is something else. I know that there was no away allocation, so it was just full of Rangers supporters yesterday, just over 49,000 in Ibrox. And when that goal went in, the noise was deafening, and you really felt it under your feet. The whole gantry was moving about. Those in the Bill Struth stand were doing the bouncy, and the Copeland Broomloan and the Sandy Jardine stand as well. You could see it was such a spectacle to behold. It really was something else. And again, I mentioned there that the players get such a lift from that. I know Balogun and Hollander mentioned it. Gary McAllister mentioned it as well in his post-match comments. But you can't not help but get a boost from that, seeing that all around, supporting you and giving you that extra 5-10% to go and do the business. But yeah, it was absolutely sensational to see and to witness. And to be fair, from the first minute to the last, they never stopped singing, chanting. They're right behind the team, and yeah, it really was a real sight to behold. Number of you getting in touch actually on the social media channels. Thanks again for tuning in this morning. It's great to have your company as always. One of the other takeouts yesterday, Johnny, that we'll touch on is Chris Boyd mentioned it in his post-match comments about Borna Barisic. Of course, set up the goal with a fantastic delivery. But it almost looked like he was saying goodbye to Ibrox for the last time. What did you make of Barisic's sort of actions and Chris Boyd's comments?
Well, I would say his actions, first of all, are intriguing and were strange, you know, to see. And I can understand why Chris Boyd reacted the way he did, because there's really no other way to interpret what he was doing. You know, he looked teary-eyed, he looked emotional, and then he gets a hug from, I think it's the doctor, Doc Waller, and he gets down on his on his haunches, sort of in a little ball on the ground, and sort of touches the Ibrox pitch in a sort of tender way, as if he's saying goodbye. And he looks. There's no getting away from it. He looks emotional. He touches the ground, and then he gets up. And Andy Firth, who's like the sort of, I think it's like the squad's mascot or something like that, because he's always like cuddling and jumping about, and whenever there's a win, comes over and gives him a hug and sort of consoles him a bit. So it was a bit it's a bit of a left field thing to see. I think most people were like, "Whoa, what was that? What was that?" And Chris Boyd just, I think, summed up what everyone was thinking. That well, the transfer window's coming on Tuesday, and that's it going to be slamming shut, to use the cliche. And perhaps Borna Barisic, that interest, I think, has been there for a long, long time. It's been reported for a long, long time by journalists who I know are in the know about the interest, not just chat. There's been interest from Serie A with Roma. There's been interests from other clubs, and you wonder if something's perhaps maybe being firmed up in one of these top 5 leagues. What I would say, Derek, is Borna Barisic has been a terrific story, a great signing by Steven Gerrard, but also I think a man who deserves credit for his signing is Mark Allen, because Mark Allen was getting slaughtered for his signing. Mark Allen's Croatian contacts, they've got Eros, Grezda, Nikola Katic and Barisic. Well, let me tell you, Katic is we all know, we've discussed Katic, we know he's a good player. And Barisic, for 1.5 million, has been worth the price of the 3 of them. Even though Eros Grezda was a failure, he's been absolutely terrific. So Mark Allen deserves immense credit for that. And it took time for him to get going. The only other player I can think of, I've mentioned them in recent video pods, is Mark Hateley, because Barisic, you always looked a really supremely talented player, but one that just didn't suit Scottish football. Yeah. But he got there in the end. That free kick against St Mirren, I think, ironically, was 2 years ago, about four or 5 days ago now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and that was a turning point for his entire Rangers career. And he's just been absolutely terrific. Given Rangers that kind of balance on the other flank. James Tavernier's great going forwards and gives you real quality delivery in the box, although we've not probably seen that so far this season. Barisic has given that on the left. I think actually his crossing is better than Tavernier's. He's maybe not quite as dynamic or quite as nimble or not as good a dribbler, but he's certainly a better crosser. He's got a pinpoint free kick, terrific set piece delivery, as we saw in the weekend, and he'd be a big loss. But, and it's a big but, Derek, Rangers have made it very clear there's not any lying or any obfuscation trying to keep things quiet. They've been clear that they want to sell 1 or 2 players this window as part of their business model. They call it the player trading model. It's one of their 4 pillars of operating as a good business. And what they need to do, what they want to do, is every summer window is turn over one of their very good players for decent money and use that to recycle into the team and recycle into the business of the club. So that would be selling a Borna Barisic for £10 million, picking up a £1.5 million replacement who can sit alongside Calvin Bassey. Those 2 can fight for the place. And the whole thing starts again. Calvin Bassey becomes the next Borna Barisic, or the new signing becomes the next Borna Barisic. And at 28, this is the time to sell Borna Barisic. Everyone wants to go, we'll leave it to next season. We'll want to get 50, 60 to get to the Champions League. But next season he's 29. And at that point, clubs sort of start to see that as being on the downward spiral. If you're getting a player at 28, you're already kind of over that cusp, I think, for a lot of big clubs. Yeah. And, at 28, you can get away with it. That's the time, I think, to do a deal. So while, like everyone else, watching with Rangers at heart, you'd be disappointed that Borna Barisic might be on his way. But at the same time, it is the right time for a player like Borna Barisic to go. And I think if he was to go, it's just validation of this business model Rangers have quite clearly said they want to follow. And I think he should go with the best wishes of everyone, because he's been a terrific servant and a terrific signing. And no one can take away from him the fact that he's forever going to be a legend of 55. Now, he might not go. That might have just been an extremely strange reaction. I should caveat by saying that I don't know what's happening with Borna Barisic. But if you combine that reaction with what Gary McAllister said in the post-match presser, where he was quite coy about it and said, you never know, then I think it's fair to assume that Borna Barisic might be on his way.
Yeah, he also spoke to Sky Sports afterwards, Gary McAllister, and says there's 2 days left of the transfer window. If he's waving his goodbyes, if he's saying cheerio to the Rangers fans, listen, he's been a great servant. And Andrew Barclay says, echoes that. He says if it's his last game, what a game to go out on in front of the fans and the whole ground singing his name. He's like many of the players, he's had a sort of lacklustre start to the campaign, but I felt he grew into the game yesterday. And the way he celebrated that goal as well was stunning, just sprinting over to celebrate with Helander and all the players celebrating as well with him. It just shows you the unity, Johnny, doesn't it? Amongst, I think Balogun mentioned that afterwards, and McAllister as well mentioned it, not just the players coming together, but the academy team, the B team, and the staff as well, those behind the scenes that you don't hear about. It really was a team effort this week.
Yeah, we do an article on the Rangers Review called Points from the Presser, where we take the best things that the manager has said from across all the media organisations he talks to. So, for example, yesterday, McAllister talked to Sky, he talked to Rangers TV, and he was at the press conference. And for me, the thing that was one of the things that was most important was this idea of creating unity throughout the club. And it's something that McAllister talked about previously, before the game, in the aftermath of the match over in Armenia. It's about everyone coming together to get through this period, not just the players, the management team, the boardroom, the fans. It's about everyone collectively pulling together and becoming, a tight unit. And he used the word tight as well. And I think he did that. I think it was a really clever strategy for Gary McAllister to go down that route, to try and pull everyone close together. You didn't have Steven Gerrard around. It might well be that Steven Gerrard said, look, this is what we want to do. This is the message we want to get across. But Gary McAllister's still the one that was delivering it to the media, delivering it to the players. And what I think is he deserves immense credit as well, because he's such a calm presence.
Yeah.
He had a sort of, he didn't have a great management career, let's be honest. He's had a good coaching career. And he was obviously an unbelievable playing career. I don't know for whatever reason that is, but Gary always comes across as an impeccably nice man, who's really able to deliver a message in a nice soft way. And I think he's done that impeccably in terms of delivering that media message. It's been really good, and that's been a big factor, and he deserves a lot of credit for it.
Yeah, big fan of Gary Mack. Finally, as you mentioned, the transfer window slams shut, as we say, tomorrow. Not much news with regards to possible incomings for Rangers, but one that sort of raised my eyebrow, Johnny, that I noticed yesterday. A journalist with Goal.com, quite a reputable journalist, quoting that Willie Caballero is on the Rangers' radar now. I find this hard to believe based on the fact that they already have, two, John McLaughlin, Alan McGregor, two experienced goalkeepers, and Robbie McCrory yesterday, who produced his second clean sheet in his second game as Rangers goalkeeper, flung in at the deep end. I find it hard to believe that we're going after this 39-year-old goalkeeper.
Okay, well, I'll tell you why I don't necessarily find it that hard to believe.
Okay.
Now, on the face of it, yes, I get it. I totally get it. 39, we've already got two really good goalkeepers. We've got a third goalkeeper that's shown yesterday's terrific, who needs games. But I think that's the point. Robbie McCrory needs to go out on loan. There's no point in having him as a third keeper. And let's be honest, Alan McGregor's the best keeper in the country. Second to that, John McLaughlin is probably the second best keeper in the country. He's certainly a Scotland international. So if he was playing, he would be Scotland's number one, I would imagine now. Well, him or Craig Gordon.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to get into that for a young lad like Robbie McCrory. And listen, as a keeper, he's a young lad. So I think he needs to go out on loan, have another season. He was at Livingston. It was an up and down spell. Max Strycek, who's at Livingston, is a very good keeper. So he really was under pressure for his first team spot. And of course, he was in and out. I think he needs to go to a club in his first choice, possibly down south, English Championship, League One type scenario. I think that would do him the world of good. And he comes back ready to challenge, with maybe Alan McGregor deciding he's going to finish up. I don't know what Alan McGregor's going to do, but he's 39. He's going to be 40, obviously. And he might not want to go another season. So it would make sense that you then bring Robbie McCrorie back and you have McLaughlin and McCrorie. The difference is right now is I think Rangers will have looked at the situation around COVID and the fact they've lost two keepers and it's such a specialist position and thought, we can't risk this. So I don't know if they'll do something different with their protocols, maybe have two separate goalkeeping training areas, so that if one is infected, the other is fine. I don't know. I'm literally spitballing. I hope nobody's thinking that I've got any inside information, because I don't on this. But I'm presuming they've looked at this situation and thought, well, we have to make sure this doesn't happen again. So how do we do it? So I'm wondering if a link, and if it is a reputable link, they're thinking we actually need to beef up our quality goalkeeping options while allowing McCrorie to go on loan. And a 39-year-old keeper is like a perfect example of someone you could bring in to be third choice. Someone who's just happy to be around the squad, happy to come into training and knows his role that he needs to be called upon.
Yeah, I don't think Willie Caballero will be coming here happy to be third choice. Sheffield United are wanting him to replace Aaron Ramsdale. They're heavily linked with him as well. Coming from Chelsea, I don't think he'll be happy. Johnny played second fiddle to Alan McGregor and John McLaughlin. So he may do. Listen, he may very well enjoy that role. But I can see your point of view with regards to bringing in another experienced pro, because who knows what the future holds with regards to COVID? Nobody really knows.
Well, that's it. It's really thrown a spanner in the works. And the one thing you have to say about Rangers last season is they managed COVID beautifully. And I've said this before, I see it a lot that, Rangers were lucky with COVID. But you make your own luck in life. You know, if you're extremely well organised and you're fastidious about people following protocols, it's not luck that then you don't have COVID cases. Now, I suppose the argument would be, well, other clubs were maybe fastidious as well and still had COVID cases. But that's bad luck. It's not that Rangers had good luck, I don't think. I think you've seen them talk about the fact that at the training ground, everyone's pulling together to make sure that these protocols are being followed fastidiously. And I think one of the things that they can do to mitigate that is ensure that in specialist positions that they've got real cover. So I can see absolutely why they might be interested in an experienced keeper, especially if McCrorie is to go out on loan in the next couple of days. But they might decide just to keep McCrorie in there until the January transfer window and just see where they're at. I'm not sure. But what I can say about Robbie McCrorie, we've not really touched on him, is that he had a fine game and he made a couple of good stops. And when he was called into action, on the rare occasion he was called into action, he was good. I think one other player, just before we go, Derek, that I would like to point out, I was quite impressed by, and we've got a piece coming up on him on the website today, is John Lundstrom. I thought when he came on, he added the muscularity and power to the Rangers midfield that we all hoped that he was going to bring. And he helped see out the game. It was his best sort of showing in a Rangers shirt. And perhaps a sign that he's maybe starting to get a hold of what he's being asked to do. He didn't make any mistakes, that's for sure. And he's such a big, strong guy. There was a couple of moments where, he muscled people off the ball and stuff like that. And you thought, okay, this is decent after a pretty torrid time. I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, he done a job when he came on. I still have doubts where he fits into this Rangers side. I think it's going to take time. I don't think we're going to see the best of him until near enough December time, because it's going to take him time. It's an alien way for him to play football now to what he was used to at Sheffield United. It was unfair to expect him just to fit into this side and hit the ground running, really. So I'm up for giving him time, but as we know, the Rangers supporters are very impatient when it comes to players like this, and that sending off against Alishkert has put him back slightly, but all he can do is get his head down, work hard, and put in displays like his cameo against Celtic and hopefully win the Rangers support round, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way to do that is just to, as you say, just get your head down. There's no other way for it. As we've already talked about, that's what Borna Barisic did.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks again for everyone getting in touch with the programme this morning. And remember, we've got a flash sale on just now. Just subscribe to the Rangers Review for only £1 a month for the first 2 months and support top quality journalism covering the team you love. We've got some great content on the website just now. Lots of reaction to that Old Firm win yesterday. And keep your eye on our social media accounts as well on Twitter and on Facebook. We'll be back tomorrow morning looking ahead to what could be a busy day in the transfer world for Rangers. But until then, enjoy.